Photographers are like lemon meringue pies. They're sour. They're the least favorite thing in a room of treats. They put themselves in situations that make them moldy. It's not that I wouldn't help one if he came to seek my help. I wouldn't push him in a river, at least right away. I would help him.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
I forgot my douche tuber light. I'm not even a man. Douche mode confirmed. I'll go home. You know what sucks? The whole episode I just shot was in HD. I've been doing 4K lately because there's more 3D pop. And it was back in HD for some reason. Because I did this stupid slow-mo thing. Oh god, at least it wasn't filmed at 240p, or was it? Oh god. I'm in 4K now, but I'm leaving. So welcome to Dull Boy soon. So we're only doing one question per episode now because your lameness has protruded into my existence and there's not enough questions to go around. So you only have yourself to blame. Here we have one guy. I think C70 has better dynamic range. What is worse than the A7S III? Many things, my friend. I mentioned in a video that the C70 would be on my radar of interesting things, low megapixels, cinema cam, Canon colors. But it's probably worse than my A7S III in a lot of ways. Here are the many ways and reasons that I chose the A7S III over the C70. The first reason was C70 didn't exist yet. You can't choose something that isn't real. And that's the unfortunate part. I would have chose the Canon. So I wrote down all the things I could think of that would ruin my life as a C70 user instead of the A7S III with a 90mm macro. Black Promise filter engaged. 4K mode on the thing for some reason with the Octava mic. 4K mode. The first reason that the C70 is worse is maybe not the best reason, but it's not full frame. I know most movies are shot on Super 35 or less. Doesn't really matter, only in your living room does it matter, but I've tested like every modern day mirrorless and full frame kills it in every way. The Canon R looks better than a Fuji X-T4. It just does. It's full frame. It's better. So it's like, you can speed boost your way through life. Do I have a hair? What is this? It's coming out of my forehead. Is that a disease? But the sad reality is you're an RF mount, which has only full frame glass except a couple kit lenses for APS-C, but you have the Super 35 crop on it, so your options are so limited, especially for wide stuff, but for anything. RF glass is not known for 3D pop. Even the super expensive stuff like 50mm 1.2, super high element count, nothing vintage about it. So like your only real option is to get a speed booster and then use older L lens EF mount stuff. So like if it was me, I'd be using my 24mm L lens Mark 1 21.4 with the speed booster, and then we're up around like 35-ish mil. Okay, I could make do. It'd look nice. But in general, RF lenses are super heavy and expensive and big, and your only real option are old DSLR lenses with a speed booster, and you could survive the apocalypse. The autofocus is not only worse, but it doesn't... Okay, don't quote me on this, but when I used the R5C, I switched into 4K 120p. The autofocus worked, but the auto exposure did not. And that brings me into the next thing, which is the menu system. The C70 has that complicated Canon Cinema menu. You cannot save custom modes, don't quote me on that. You cannot do auto exposure, you can't ride the shutter, you can't do a damn thing. Like, you're not supposed to do these things, but when I'm doing like a candid slow-mo street video, it's like I need Sony to handle the auto exposure and autofocus and everything. I'm panicked walking by someone like, oh boy, hopefully he's in the frame. I'm trying not to look at him so I can't really judge the framing. I could be like, oh, here you are. Wow, you're in my movie. Punch. So because the R5C couldn't do these things, because of that Canon Cinema menu, the whole operating system is very different. Whereas like the R5, if you're in the regular menus, you can do animal eye detect in video. But you switch on over to the Cinema Cam, oh, you don't need that, do you? We would have if you had an EVF, which you don't. You have no EVF. How am I going to do wildlife with that? Oh, look at the screen. Oh, the sun's blocking it. I just died and a squirrel ran off with my blood. Canon Cinema menus are so overly complicated and so full of stuff I would never use, whereas Sony, everything's right there. We get made fun of. Sony menu systems like, oh, those are terrible. Everything is right there for you to pick and choose. There's a couple quirks where you can't do a custom white balance in your custom modes, nor can you switch them from like aperture priority to manual. You have to go redo the whole thing. That's a bitch. But I can save them in there, and I've done that. I have one that's aperture priority, boom. The other one's not. One has face detect, one is just a box. I got all kinds of modes, and then if I don't, and I'm just in regular movie mode, I make the switch with the function mode, which I can set. There's like 16 things down here. It's like, boom, white balance, active stab. Oh, why was that on? Oh, I left that on, whoops. It's much better. Speaking of active stab, in Sony, I have IBIS plus active stab. For the most part, that gets you by. It's real smooth for vlogging, kind of, if you're careful. For like the long telephoto stuff, you do not turn active on ever. But it's pretty good. I wouldn't hold it like that. What am I doing? The grip's over here. Why isn't the grip in the back? That's another episode waiting to happen. Just waiting for your question about it. It's pretty good. Whereas Canon, you have no IBIS and only digital. That scares me. It might work, I don't know, for like vlogging, but like wildlife without the EVF. The next nail in the coffin, I have 240 frames per second. Canon only has 180, and I do believe it has a crop in that mode. And does autofocus even work? Does auto exposure work? I doubt it. Let me know down below. It's not the same. So like we both have 4K 120, but I have slower HD, even though it's fugly looking. I can film hamsters eating grass. So while maybe Canon will give you a more professional feel to the operation, I prefer the run and gun ease of switching easily 4K 120 to 240 with one switch, and they're both auto exposing and auto manually. I didn't write that. The Canon C70 is also much bigger and heavier, and that bigger battery, you might say, oh, I have the best battery in here. It lasts so long. No one cares. I've never been outside with the A7S III where my battery is dead. It lasts like multiple days, and I just bring one tiny battery with me. Whereas yours lasts longer, no one cares about your life, and you have an extra huge battery weighing you down, your shoulder hurts because it's in your knapsack. You're dumb. When it comes to the price, we have Canon C70 about $5,500 US, I think. You could probably find it used by now cheaper, but $5,500 versus $3,500, that's $2,000. And then you add the speed booster, you're looking $259. Nope, that's a lot more money for less features. Now, while one might say Canon C70 has some advantages that your A7S III will never have, like firmware updates, must be nice. I admit it. It hurts that you can actually add raw recording and you get better over time, whereas we haven't changed a damn thing here. So like in the beginning, it was Sony A7S III destroys C70. Now C70's catching up because Canon seems to care. So you got the firmware, you're doing raw, you got better color science, you have a cinema look, a little bit more, maybe, subjective. Built-in NDs, that must be nice. More buttons. I actually wrote that, wow. And a red record button. That's nice. False color, XLR mics right in there. You could actually shoot a Netflix show. It's approved. Mine, not so sure. Doubt it. That's about it. The reasons I would want a C70 are for this, just talking head stuff in my living room to have more pleasing skin tones maybe, and I look healthier and younger. That's why I would want it. And then outside, picking my scenes in nature, I feel like the C70 would be really good for that. I'm manually doing anything, false color, manual focus, boom, perfect scene. And then like the dynamic range, from what I've seen, it's like almost neck and neck. It's surprising that it's smaller sensor Canon C70 matching the A7S III, if not defeating it slightly. But it's such a small difference that it's not, you can't write it down as an advantage. Your mom's an advantage, to me. I love that the C70 has a low megapixel sensor just like the A7S III, only that one is 16:9 as well. So it's done everything I want, and it's great. It's just way overpriced for what it is, and I just don't need it. I cannot justify it. And I'm happier with the A7S III, I think, unless I try the C70. I bet it's better, and I like it more, but in general, I can run across the street in 240p. Whereas that one, 180, manually focusing, no auto exposure, no IBIS. What kind of run would that be? A bad one, where I get hit by a car in the end. So for me, a C70 Mark II would need to revamp the menu system, let me save custom modes, make all that easy. We're doing auto exposure if my noob ass needs it, which I do sometimes. And just more slow motion. It's almost perfect the way it is. An EVF, I wouldn't mind it. A nice one too. I have like the best EVF in the world versus none whatsoever. That hurts. Full frame, you could fit that in somehow. And then it would be $9,000. So Canon, you suck. Your hammer. Look, I was done the episode. It was an easy to edit thing. Now you come in here dancing around and shit. I'm like praising you partly. It was a good release. I'll buy one if it's used. I just wonder why the dual gain ISO doesn't allow you to do that in slow motion. Oh. Is it even true? No one confirmed it. I think it's true though. The dual gain, its whole dynamic range, oh my god, it's so good. Can't be used in 4K 120 or probably HD 180. Don't quote me on it, but it's likely. So I've helped him, even though it was more of an insult and he didn't really care. He was just like misquoting me, saying whatever I said was wrong. There's no reason to make a full episode out of this, but I'm not getting a lot of valid questions from you freaks. It's a bunch of same old shit. What would I do in a wedding photography situation? Why would I know? I've never married your mom. Yeah. I'm gonna go. Fuji Assassin t-shirts are now available, as is subscribing. For more videos, I'll see you next.